I'm Natalie Sisson, the Suitcase Entrepreneur, and in this episode of the Suitcase Entrepreneur Lifestyle Show, I'm going to tell you the 5 steps to running a successful crowdfunding campaign to start your dream idea. So for those of you who have been following me for some time, you will probably know that I ran a Kickstarter to put out the Suitcase Entrepreneur book. Now, a lot of people may have said, why did you do that? And there were a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to know that this was a book worth writing. So there was no better way for me than to use something like Kickstarter, which is one of the best crowdfunding platforms out there, and say, do you want to learn how to create freedom in business and adventure in life? And if so, here's what this book is about and here's who it's for. And luckily, I had over 200 supporters of that and I was 121% funded, which straight away meant to me that this was something that people really wanted. If they hadn't, I may never have written the book. The biggest mistake that I see people making with crowdfunding campaigns is they're often raising money for something like their own party and the Greek islands, or something that really doesn't resonate with a lot of other people. So it's very personal to them, but they haven't managed to put the story out there to make it for everybody else. So step 1 is to create a compelling story that really resonates with your audience. So a great example of this was a lady actually in San Francisco who had an engineering background, and she was really disappointed with the lack of young girls who were growing up with that kind of education behind them and wanting to go into engineering. In fact, it was a bit of a crisis in terms of the women in education in that area. So she created something called Goldie Blocks, which was a brilliant play on words of Goldilocks and building blocks. And it was a book with pop-up areas that would actually teach young girls how to use these objects to actually build things at the same time as reading. And what she did very well was she critically tapped into parents, and she really reached out to them and said, this is really sad that there are no women in this arena, and here are all the benefits that I've had as a woman in this form of career. And you could just see all the parents around the world going, gosh, it's terrible that these young girls aren't getting into this. I'm definitely going to support this. She marketed it so well. It was such a beautiful story, and less on the actual thing that she was trying to create. And as a result, she got something like close to $250,000, which was about 6 or 7 times what she was asking for. So the first step to a successful Kickstarter campaign is to really think about your story and how it's going to resonate with other people. It's not about you, it's about who you're going to help or impact, and if they can see themselves in your picture. Step 2 is to actually put together a decent marketing campaign. So I see a lot of people invest money in a great video and then they don't really back it up in the story that they're telling. So your video story can also be the script that is on the page for the Kickstarter. For those people who don't like to watch a video, they can read what you're all about. Within that written piece, you've got to have photos that make people kind of buy into your story more. So personal photos of you or photos of what you're doing, and as much information as possible about why this is so important and what it means to you. I've seen a lot of people do successful things with banners and images that you can actually cut and paste and share the campaign on that person's behalf, and also sociable things like click to tweet and copy and paste. So I did that within my campaign. I was like, even if you don't feel like reading this book or if you don't want to contribute, could you please share this page, on Facebook, on Google+, on Twitter. So tune in next week where I'm going to cover off on steps 3, 4 and 5 on how to run a successful crowdfunding campaign.
Example actually of somebody who really thought hard about her audience was a lady who did a Kickstarter for something called, I've forgotten the name.